And as an interesting side note, the goddess Daikoku-nyo has a more highly venerated male counterpart in Japan, known as Daikoku-ten, whom we see depicted here on the left. Daikoku-ten evolved in Japan from the Buddhist version of the Hindu Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva's female counterpart, of course, is Parvati, hence the feminine Daikoku-nyo being the counterpart to the masculine Daikoku-ten. Daikoku-ten, being a rather popular figure in Japan, has a rather curious resemblance to Mario, who first appeared in the arcade game Donkey Kong in 1981. Although at that time Mario was known as Jumpman. Both the deity and Mario are rotund, jolly characters, each wearing a flat cap, swinging a mallet, and they're, well, at least Daikoku-ten here, standing on a barrel. While Daikoku-ten, he's often depicted sitting or standing on some sort of a barrel. Of course, barrels are prominently featured in Donkey Kong. This was a game which also which was created by Zelda's creator, Mr. Miyamoto. So it really makes you wonder. Mr. Miyamoto's influences are very, very interesting. And while it's well known that Mr. Miyamoto drew inspiration from Alice in Wonderland for the Super Mario games, the Donkey Kong version of Mario seems very much inspired by this highly venerated god of wealth, happily swinging his hammer of fortune. So let's go back to the golden goddesses so we can tie all of this together. Now, these three Hindu goddesses depicted here combine their energies to form what is known as the Tridevi, which means three divas. This is the feminine correlate to the Hindu Trimurti. In the Hindu Trimurti is the masculine side of this, and it's comprised of the deities Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. So there's a masculine and a feminine aspect to this Triforce of deities, in a sense. The Trimurti and the Tridevi appear to be the basis for the well-known Christian Trinity and the Trinitarian of Egyptian deities Osiris, Horus, and Isis. In Christianity, we would say the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. The Triforce in the Legend of Zelda games uses the very same divine archetype as found in the Hindu Tridevi. The symbolism and connection of the sacred archetype of the Triforce, Tridevi, Trinity, and many other sacred sets of three divine energies is a topic worth dedicating its own presentation to. Before we go any further, I should be clear that each culture imports a deity from another land, but it does so completely in accordance with the local indigenous culture, its language, its environment, and just the general sensibilities of the people. The outward-facing details may differ radically between cultures, but the source energies or essence of these archetypes can be seen and understood in a more universal sense to the seeker who is willing to peer beyond the world of forms and explore the metaphysical realm of first causes. This is what esotericism is all about, to see what lies beneath. In many respects, divine archetypes, such as the ones we just explored, are very similar at their core because human beings are all very much the same. When you take away the layers of culture, language, and environment and peel those back, you can take a good look and appreciate how these similarities really are there. These deities aren't to be seen as actual beings to be worshipped, although at least one of these, Hote, was based on a real person who embodied the divine energies of his godlike form depicted in this image. Instead, gods and goddesses are to be venerated and understood as kami, which in Japanese describes certain attributes of spirit which exist in nature and all things, including people. We all possess varying levels of these energies, but typically we only have predominant tendencies towards one or two of these energies and their embodiments. People may embody one or all of these traits in varying degrees, or at least will honor and hope to embody some of these in order to gain good fortune. It should be no surprise to anyone that the number 7 is understood to be good luck in many cultures. What isn't well known is that these 7 deities seem to correspond to the esoteric concept of the 7 rays. You can also, these are the 7 deities of good fortune, and each of them kind of represents a idealized or a virtuous quality that you would want to find in people, want to find in a person. And at least one of these, Hote, the guy, the fat jolly guy with his shirt off carrying the bag, he is kind of like likened to sort of a noble bum, and he goes around picking up things that are discarded from adults and he gives the things, he collects them in his bag and then he gives them out to children to play with. And apparently that this was a real person at some point. Originating in India and spreading throughout the world, the 7 rays principle is a map of sorts which describes 7 different types of magic and how each of these rays or types of light energy correspond to certain human personality types, similar to the relationship between human attributes and the zodiac. In fact, the 7 rays has a direct relation to the zodiac used in the West. And I can say for myself, as a 4th ray magician, this model quite accurately describes my personality as well as my own divine gift and tendencies. Even more so, I would say, than Western astrology. I would encourage anyone who's interested in this to look up the 7 rays and figure out which of the 7 is your ray. To me, there is a correspondence between the 7 rays concept and the 7 chakras, the 7 steps of alchemy, although there's really 8. However, this would be an entire presentation in its own right. Before we get into the really juicy stuff about the Triforce and the incredibly deep symbolism contained in this archetypal form, I would also like to cover a few interesting esoteric related tidbits. Maybe this is like some sort of housekeeping, if you will, about the Legend of Zelda series in general that some fans may already know but may not fully understand. Starting with the manji, as it's known in Japan, or the swastika, which is the Sanskrit word. This sacred yet widely abused and misunderstood symbol appears in the first Legend of Zelda game, which caused a bit of controversy at the time. This is a rather complex and deeply spiritual symbol found in the ancient Indus Valley civilizations between India and modern-day Iran. This particular symbol has been used by countless civilizations across the entire expanse of Asia, the Middle East, and as well, of course, in ancient Europe. In Persia, it is known as the Wheel of Mithra, representing several constellations of the night sky. In Hinduism, when facing clockwise, it represents the sun, the masculine, good luck, and prosperity. When presented counterclockwise, it represents the night, the feminine, and all things dark and mysterious. The swastika also represents Zeus, Jupiter, and Thor in the ancient Germanic religions, which comprised the Norse, Anglo-Saxon, and continental German peoples. The swastika is even related to the Christian cross, as it has been used to signify the sun and also the four seasons. The original name of the third game in the series is The Legend of Zelda Triforce of the Gods. They changed it in the United States for maybe obvious reasons. Although the original Legend of Zelda game in Japan referred to a spell book in the game as the Bible. The book was later named the Magic Book for the US release, so as not to confuse religion with magic. In the East, it's a little different because there really is no distinction, much less any problem associating religion and magic. They're not. The Eastern religions are typically they don't see a lot of religions don't see a distinction. Like Zoroastrianism, there's no distinction between religion and magic. In the West, of course, there's a long history of religious persecution and insistence that religion has nothing to do with magic at all. And I think that came from persecution of Eastern religions. So in the West, they would want to differentiate themselves. And so any religion that saw no difference between magic and religion would instantly be put in the dark, mysterious category of magic and demons and all that kind of stuff. So now that we've got the introduction and a few interesting tidbits out of the way, now it's time to go really deep. I don't know how this presentation is going to impact you personally, but I think it is safe to say that you will never look at the Legend of Zelda series in the same way again.